Good morning to all of you. Welcome at this Bolster-Up 2 conference, organized by the European social partners. On the one hand, the European Federation of Wood and Building Workers, and on the other hand, FederlegnoArredo. This project was funded by the European Commission and involved partners of 9 member states: Belgium, Bulgaria, Croatia, Italy, the Netherlands, Portugal, Romania, Spain, and Sweden. And this project was a follow-up of the Bolster-Up 1 project on furniture professions. So this second project, Bolster-Up 2, aimed to recognize qualifications and competences of 3 major professions in the wood and furniture sector: the professions of joiner, upholsterer, and cabinet maker. And these core profiles will support not only the work of public employment services in their matching activities, but also the activities to raise the quality of national and sectoral VAT programs. So we will have an interesting webinar with different speakers of different project partners, but also from the European level. And I hope you will enjoy this webinar. And for the introduction of this webinar, I hand over the floor to, on the one hand, Mr. Rolf Gering, who is representing the European Federation of Building and Woodworkers and is the political secretary of this federation. And on the other hand, Mr. Nicolas Sangali, who is representing the employers' organization FederlegnoArredo. The word is up to you, Rolf.
Yes, thank you, Fons. And on behalf of the European Federation of Building and Woodworkers, I have the honor to welcome all of you taking part in today's event. I will draw your attention very briefly on 3 different aspects, which are a bit more of general character and less touching the content of our joint project. The first aspect is that this project is not the first one that was mentioned by Fons already. It is Bolster-Up 2, but it would also have not been possible to run this project without a number of other projects we run in the past. I just name a few. That is the Foster VET Mobility project. Then we had, of course, the Bolster-Up 1 project, but we also had a project called Dual Learning, run by Woodwise, the Belgium institute that is running vocational education and training and is organizing that, or the project Digit Furniture, a project dealing with the question in how far technological developments will have effects on the vocational education and training. That was the first aspect. The second one is very briefly explained. That is a fact that on EU level, the EU is not responsible for education. So nevertheless, we had all these projects. Why? That guides me directly to the third aspect, and that is the European social dialogue. The social dialogue between social partners, meaning unions and employer organizations on European level, is institutionalized and very much supported. So for us, it is a possibility bringing together stakeholders, in this case the social partners, and dealing also with issues not directly influenced by the EU. We have also to see that the EU is very active in the field of vocational education and training. But the social dialogue is a platform. We don't have direct access to the national level. And that is the second aspect of social dialogue and brings me back to this project. We can provide a platform, but what we need on national level is firstly that people take aware of what we're doing on European level. Secondly, we need acceptance. And then thirdly, maybe most important, we need practical activities to implement what we have done on European level. Without acceptance, it doesn't work. But taking this last aspect, I think that today's event is a final event of our project, but it should be the starting point for these national activities. So in this connection, I would very much appreciate that we see us again in this connection, in this structure, let's say, but also on national levels and in further activities. Thank you.
Now I hand over the floor to Nicolas Sangali of the Employers Organization.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. First of all, I want to say thank you to all people who participate today in this final event of Bolster-Up 2. And also thank you to all partners and experts who have participated in this project during these years. As FederlegnoArredo, the Federation of Wood and Furniture Sector, we are very happy with the results of this project, which we see as an important step, above all, from the point of view of the cultural growth of companies in our sector. Wood and furniture sector, very briefly, looks to the new decade, the next 10 years, aware of having to face some essential challenges for its own competitiveness. Competition from manufacturing countries with low labor costs, for example, loss of attractiveness of the sector towards young people entering in the job market, and new targets with new needs. I'm thinking about migrants, silver customer, millennials, different targets with different habits and different preferences. And these are three of many. Last but not least, the COVID emergency, for example. So one of the key to face up these challenges for a market such as the woodworking and furniture lies in the concept of cross-fertilization, contamination, mutual exchange. This cross-fertilization has three different forms. Generational cross-fertilization, in which the know-how can be passed on to the new generation throughout the value chain. Cross-fertilization with other product sector. I'm thinking about other F sector, food and fashion, which together with the furniture sector need to find a new balance between tradition, innovation, progressive digitalization, and globalization of the market. And the last one, cross-fertilization within the supply chain. The various stakeholders of the supply chain are called to cooperate by sharing need and solution outside of their usual way of doing things. But why we are talking about cross-fertilization today? Because in our opinion, this project is a good vehicle for this cross-fertilization because it had the capacity to put together different vision, different states of art in order to try to take a step forward together. So this project has the great merit of having taken a step towards cross-fertilization in all these forms that I just mentioned. We know that is only a step, as Rolf said, but is the step we must to take towards a harmonization of the knowledge of the different figures described in the project. In this sense, I agree, social dialogue project offer a key area for deepening and developing these precious alliances between companies and the entire production chain, all the stakeholders all around the sector. The associations also. And as a federation, we pay attention to develop and quality of a national training system for our sector. And we are convinced that in order to maintain a high quality, it is now essential to confront and collaborate with other European countries, starting from the mutual exchange of best practices and imaging together the key figures for the future of the sector. So we are very happy with the project, and this is why we also hope that this is the first or the second after Bolster-Up 1, Bolster-Up 2, the second step of many others. Of course, finally, I want to say again, thank you to enterprises and the experts and partners who participate during these years, and also to the people who participate today in this final conference. That could be, I hope, a starting point from new ideas to develop together. So enjoy the conference, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gering and Mr. Sangali, for your introduction, but mainly for your invitation to further collaboration to implement the score profiles and vocational training and education programs. Before we will present the results of the project, I will hand over the floor to Mr. Peter van Hoeke, who is the CEO of Van Hoeke Company, which is a factory of the future, twice elected as Factory of the Future, and he gave us a small TED Talk on his view on collaboration and evolutions in the sector. Mr. Van Hoeke, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope I'm well understood on the other side. So it's an honor for me to be able to present something about our company, and especially the project, the Factory of the Future. I think it's very important for woodworking companies and our industry to keep this future-oriented focus. And if I can contribute to that, I'm very glad to do so. So therefore, I will share my screen and I will talk about the whole project through a PowerPoint presentation. So just switching. Okay, so here we go. I hope everybody can see my screen. And welcome to all of you. I will tell you something about our personal smart way to continuity and well-being. And you might ask yourself, what is continuity and well-being doing in this context? Well, it are the drivers which we had to always look to the future, because we want to safeguard our company for that future, and therefore we need to take some measures. Before that, I'd like to present a little bit, few slides about ourselves. We call ourselves experts in functional furniture hardware. So probably this morning you all already met us in some kind of form when you took your coffee in the morning in your kitchen or your hotel room, and you opened the drawer or you closed the door. Then hinges, flap systems, drawer systems. That is our core business. In the core, we were founded by my father in 1967 as a distribution company, because at that time functional furniture hardware was at the beginning of its development. Of course, today we have developed more, and I will talk to you about that later. Of course, we are due to the first statement, we are a supplier to the furniture industry. So that means from the one man-owned business as a carpenter to factories with over 1,000 employees, they all are kind of customers for us. So that's the world where we're in. Of course, we talk to the interior designers because they have to create the furniture, and we also talk to the end consumers because we want to know what they want in their daily use, so we can develop better and more products. As already mentioned by Fons, we are we got twice the certificate of Factory of the Future, which in Germany is called Industrie 4.0, but it is a label which which identifies your company as ready for the digital future that lies ahead of us. And it was a very big step in 2016 for us to do this, because to make this jump from only distribution to a production at a very high level, it was absolutely a big challenge for us. And we were very glad, of course, that we were the first woodworking company in Belgium to get this certificate, which lasts 3 years. And after 3 years, you have to improve your situation you had before. So we did that again in 2019. And now we are absolutely on track to furthermore improve and to have this as a strategy within our company to always improve. Family-owned business, as I said, my father on the left side, myself on the right side since 1967. Some key figures, we do 84 million euro turnover. We have 7,000 regularly buying customers, 260 enthusiastic employees, but the figure that will interest you the most is the last one. We are able to produce, if we produce every drawer we can produce once, we must produce about 48,000 billion different drawers. So this enormous variety was our challenge to do so. And before we did that, we asked ourselves the question, what do we have to do today to still be relevant in 5 years? And I must say that 5 years, I would rather change that today in 3 years. Because the development of the future is so at such a high speed that we are not able to make plans longer than 3 to maximum 5 years. 20 years ago, we would have made a 10-year plan or a 20-year plan, but that we cannot do today. We always ask ourselves the question, if we as a company never existed, what would our clients have missed? If you're not able to find an answer to that question, then the relevance of the company is at stake. I think it's perhaps it's a little provocant to state it like this, but I think every company has to look for an answer to this question and to find solutions to that. Because we also believe that we are in a red ocean. Some of you certainly read the book, The Blue Ocean Strategy, where companies are advised to go and look for areas in the market where they have a sole position and where there is no competition. We don't believe that that is possible in our area, in the furniture industry. We think it will still be a red ocean, but that means that we have to be at least 10 times better than our competitors. And why we do this? Because continuity is our highest goal. As I stated at the beginning, we want to safeguard our company for the future over the next generations to be there for their employees and for the stakeholders. And if that's our goal, so we have to create growth, because if we don't grow, then we die. Everything that doesn't grow dies in nature. So that's also the same with the company. If a company does not reinvent themselves or keeps growing, and I don't say that growth means turnover, it can be growth in quality, it can be growth in productivity, it can be growth in any kind of way, but you have to seek for this growth. Because this is our biggest challenge, competence blindness. That's our biggest threat. If we don't disrupt ourselves every time and over again, we'll end up, as I always say, like the Romans. We are satisfied with our position, and that's just the right moment and spot for your competitors to take over your position, because we are market leader in our home market. That means, how do we survive if we are market leader? So we are the ones that everybody is focusing on. That's on one side, but on the other side, we cannot grow unless we reinvent ourselves. And reinventing yourself is a very once in a while traumatic experience. The Kodak company, the man on the right side was the inventor of the first digital camera, and the board of directors at Kodak said, "Who the hell wants to look to the photos through a screen. So they put this camera into into a drawer or an archive, and we all know what happened with Kodak afterwards. The rest is history. The same thing. I think a lot of us used once one of those type of phones. Nokia was world market leader in cell phones, and they completely disappeared, almost completely disappeared from this market position, dominant market position, because I believe that the phone keeps ringing. It will not stop today. The developments are far more, the speed of development is far more higher than what we think it is. So please do not imagine that that developments will go at a lower pace. It will be at a high pace. And if we don't change our strategies, then the only thing we can do is blame our environment. We blame the government for not supporting us. We blame the internet for taking our business away. And I think that's not the right attitude to have. So our solution to survive was creating a product that allows us to expand on an international scale. Because of course we were in Benelux countries a market leader. How can we go to the rest of the world? Because that's for us a whole new area, and that's where we developed our tower box. The tower box is, in fact, it's a wooden drawer system which contains a lot of technology in it, physical, mechanical technology, but also service technology, and that was our challenge. And you know, our task is not to foresee the future, but to enable it, as Antoine de Saint-Exupéry said. So that's our focus. How can we realize this? And for that, we needed some drivers. You know, great organizations don't guess. We are too big, and I have too much responsibility for my employees that I cannot take that kind of risks. So we have to focus on the future and have a great insight in what's coming onto us. And if I look into the future, then I see that the speed of technological development cannot be slowed down. We know that in a few years, our computers will be smarter than the human brain. So that's something that bothers us in how we are organizing our company for the future. Also, the speed, the same thing is, if you see the number of years it took to get people acquainted to new technologies. It took 62 years to have 50 million automobiles in the market. It took 19 days to have Pokemon Go be a favorite for 50 million people. So this speed and technology raises this pace, drives us to think a lot. And if we look to the Gartner hype cycle, then we see that this cycle focuses on the technological developments for the next 5 to 10 years. And we see there a lot of opportunities for our company. So what can we do with augmented reality? What can we do with connected home? Because furniture is part of the home. What can we do with virtual assistants? What can we do with 4D printing, for instance? All challenges which we believe we have to face. Also, AI and big data will automate large parts of our customer service of today. Today, we are providing services that will be automatically taken over by new technology. Buying will be automated. It will be personalized. It will be on subscription basis. That means that if you need some toilet paper in your home, it's not that much fun to go to the supermarket and shop for toilet paper. So that is a kind of a commodity that you want to be delivered standard to your house. And the standard products will reorder themselves. If the rack is empty, the rack will automatically reorder the product. So all those things will have an impact on our business model. Augmented reality will influence our buying behavior. IKEA is already on this track. So what about us? What about voice? The voice control. And to turn lights on, to turn lights out. Maybe they will open and close your furniture. Maybe they will secure your furniture in the future just by voice. 3D It's another technology that we are looking at will disturb our existing business models, because if we are able to print our products on a distance, then we don't have to ship them, and we don't have to produce them at one local site, and we can probably have different sites in the world. And in the end, also mobile. Mobile is everywhere. The man on the left side is not selling a phone to you. It's a beggar. He's begging for money, and he asks you to scan his QR code so that you can transfer him some small change. With that small change on the right side, he can buy some vegetables on a market, because this farmer does not have coins or money in his hands anymore. So mobile. And thanks to the internet, we also know that the customer finally grabbed the power. So if we don't listen to the customer, and that's what Steve Jobs already said, we have to develop backwards, and we have to listen to the end consumer and then develop our products backwards. That's also something we take into account, because we believe that the new development is listening to your market. And if we don't do this, our consumers and our customers will be radical to us. They will leave testimonials which are not favorable for us if we do the wrong things. It's all transparent today. You cannot hide anymore. Also, we know that working will be different as we see the whole industrial development. And if I look back to my own career, I know that when I started at our company in 1986, then I was number 11 on the payroll. And almost every job that had to be done, I could do this. Today, I'm very happy as a CEO of the company of 260 people that there are a lot of people working at our company who are much smarter than I am. So we need to have other ways of working. The new task and new ways of working will drastically change our vision to work. We will work from everywhere. I just lift out one single point. Today, through COVID, we are forced to have all our administrative people at home. So telework or working from distance was forced upon us. And luckily, we were ready with our infrastructure, but it still has a major impact on our business. So we have to adapt to all those new ways of working. Which leads me to the next step, that the old forms of leadership will become a threat to the future of work. The birds on the rack, the ones below, they look up, or the one above looks down and he says, "I only see shit." And the ones below, they look up and they say, "We only see an asshole." I apologize for the wording, but that's in fact that is it. So we have to change leadership. We have to share leadership. We have to be transparent as a company. We cannot be a black box and say we have the best quality in the world and then not act upon that. Practice what you preach. And if we don't do this, also our employees will be radical to us and they will leave us, or they will talk in a bad way, word of mouth. So, and as a last input for our development, a bigger focus on people and environment, and the impact of social responsibility. I think if we deny this, then we will make one of the biggest mistakes for the future that we can do. Although it is not tangible enough yet, there are some things that are already tangible, like waste management, for instance, but there are a lot of more aspects to corporate social responsibility, like, for instance, the care of the people, the care of the employee, and I think that will be a major differentiator for the future. So, if we know all this, let's build a factory of the future. So, and we needed to create this factory because we were a distribution company. So that means we take boxes from point A to point B in different shapes, in different ways, and with different services. But we needed to learn about manufacturing, and therefore I want to take you through 7 development stages, or 7 domains in which we had to improve and to create focus in order to become a factory of the future and to safeguard our future. So the first domain is world-class manufacturing. The fact is, if you want to produce for the future, you need competitive production technology. And how can you define this production technology? We did this by 3P processes, the production preparation process. Please look into that. It's a very, very interesting kind of methodology to define, if you have a product which was already designed, how are we going to produce this product? Therefore, we needed to develop our own machinery. From the whole machinery infrastructure, I think it's about 80 to 90% is one-off. It's made especially for us with the demands and the needs we had. And even if we going to change machines, because there are over time. So after 10 years, or 5 years, we change machines. Even after 3 years, we change machines if the technology is going to is faster than we are. So if we change machines, we will never change the machine with an identical machine. We always will have improvements on it. We always have the history of the last years included in the new development of the machines. World-class manufacturing is also overall equipment efficiency. It's quality management. So please focus also on that. So that's the first. The second domain is end-to-end engineering. I already mentioned, and remember the things we said about the consumer and the power of the consumer. If we don't look to the whole value chain, if we develop products, we are missing out, I think. The Simon approach or methodology, which is it's a simultaneously developing of products and services, makes the both blend together. So we cannot only develop products and then leave the services out, or only develop services without products. We need to do that together. Stakeholder-centered innovation. If we want to develop a product, we need to talk to the stakeholders, to the users. We need market validation if we do this. And of course, we need the business model canvas, which is where are the costs going to, what investments are needed, and what are the results. And in the end, if we see all this journey, this life journey of our product, please try to keep the control over the whole chain in your own hands, or give the control controlled to your stakeholders. That's also an issue to be considered. Third element, digital factory, full process integration, machine to machine. I can only say that if a customer of us makes a configuration in our configurator and he presses the ordering button, then the whole process flow is already created. That means no paperwork, no operators are involved to send the data, the production data, to the machines. Every machine sends the data to the other machine. So very efficient. A lot of internet applications. We also created, of course, our own ERP, but also our own MES system, manufacturing execution system that steers the whole element. And of course, because we have such a unique process, we need predictive maintenance. Integration of AI tools are also very important. Takes me to the next one, human-centered production. It's one of my favorites because I always, people who you saw the pictures of the production and you saw the robots. A lot of people always ask, I see robots, and then they say, how many people how many people are not working here because of the robots? And I always say it's the other way around. Thanks to the robots, we have a lot of people working at our company, because the robots take work from the people that I, as an employer, would not give to them because it's too hard, too difficult, and too physically physically dangerous to do this, and therefore we need the robots. But it's the other way around. So the people are in the center of our developments. We need independent teams. We have to invest in young people to make them grow. That's why education, which was already mentioned, is a very, very interesting and very important issue where we'd like to cooperate also with our government and with already education professionals. Knowledge management. We need to keep the knowledge within our company. Therefore, we need human structures that organize the whole thing. And we need also competence management, because we cannot rely on only that what we know today. We need also to develop for the future. So the human-centered factor is one of the biggest and most interesting elements in the whole process. Of course, the next one, production network. Integration of your key partners. Please try to work together with the whole supply chain. Don't see your suppliers as a supplier, but see them as a partner. Take them on into your process. Also, our machine suppliers, they are not just suppliers, they think with us, they build together with us things. I strongly believe in ecosystems, which in Asia are already the standard model, but here in Europe we are still all cooking our own meal. And I think, please let us try to build alliances. Let us try to work together. Even with your competitors, there are chances which we do not use today. Eco-production. I don't want to mention a lot about that because everybody knows that that's in the middle of our focus. If we choose materials, then we look to the eco impact it has. We are FSC, PFC certified. Our goal is to be 100% recyclable. If we have products, then we need to be at the highest level of recycle in the recycle process. We want to reduce the total packaging volume also because we ship our products. And we have environmental processes which take care of a lot of difficulties of waste management. How do we do this? We invested in heating central machine, central process, which took about 220 trucks from the roads that we needed every year to get rid of our waste. So that's, for instance, one of those issues. And the last one, smart production, mass customization. Please forget the thing that there is something in the future as, let's say, mass production. That era was between the mid-60s and let's say the end of the 90s. We all focused on mass production, and then afterwards we saw, after the opening to the internet, after the power of the consumer, that mass customization took over. That means one-piece flow, ordering one-piece flow, lean environment, QRM, quick response manufacturing. If you see this 48,000 billion different drawers we can make, if you realize that in 72 hours they are ready to be shipped, that is quick response manufacturing. And that has a lot of consequences. And of course, ultimate custom made materials. We always look for special materials, special technologies that we can integrate into that production. And that means the whole ending. So to sum it up, world-class manufacturing, end-to-end engineering. So it's a digital factory, human-centered production, production network, eco-production, and smart production systems. So I think this is what I could sum up as the main drivers for our factory of the future. And I just want to end with a few statements. I had once this discussion when we were holding a keynote for the textile industry, and I said to those guys, if the dominant color of your machines is still green, you have a major problem for the future. And afterwards, one of the the older manufacturers came to me and they said, "You're wrong about that, because my green machines, they are over 40 years old. They are still running. They are my money machines, and they are easy to service and so on." And of course, we all know that that's not true. Today, if you buy machinery, modern machinery, you can paint it in every color, and we all want to paint it in the color of our own brand. And that means those green machines, they take space in your production, and of course they earn some money today, but they will not be earning money tomorrow and after day after tomorrow. So please beware of that. Don't go in that pitfall, and just make room and new space for new machinery. Please challenge your today existing business models. I strongly believe that Uber never had a chance if the taxi industry would have challenged his own business model. Quickly adapt to new developments. The man on the right was a man with a red flag who was obliged to walk in front of every new car in London. So I think his job is not existing anymore. Also beware that the second mouse gets the cheese. Too fast is just maybe not that wise. Just wait and do better than the second, as the second one can be a strong advice. And of course, we are currently in the twilight zone between the old and the new normal. So the old normal is still there. The new normal is coming. We're stuck in the middle. Just let us find our place. And if you have the impression you have everything under control, you're driving too slow. I just want to finish with my favorite quote. And the favorite quote is, "The secret of happiness is in the action." Please take this as the advices. If you want to know more, don't hesitate to contact me. We are willing to share our knowledge and our approaches, but it's time to act now. It's not longer the time to wait, or the train of the future will pass. So that was what I had to say. I don't know whom I gave the word to, but I think if there are any questions, I will hear it from one of you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, for your inspirational speech and your positive message. And you showed us the way to the future. Not only using new technologies such as 3D printing or AI technology or robotization or machine learning, but also the need to invest in human capital, to invest in new forms of leadership, to invest in ecosystems, and to promote CSR strategies in companies. So many thanks for your testimonial. I think it inspired us for the future, and I hope we will see you in the future again with some new inspiring words for our sector. And now, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, before we will go deeper into the results of the project, I invite you to use our chat box if you have any messages or comments on the inspirational speech of Peter or on the presentation of the results of our project. And now we go to the next part of our agenda, presenting the results of our project, the Bolster-Up 2 project. And we will demonstrate the 3 professions which were elaborated in this project: the cabinet maker, the joiner, and the upholsterer. And for every profession, we will have a testimonial of a company using these professions. We will have a video about the content of every profession and some comments of 2 eminent experts on this matter. So on the one hand, we will have a comments by Mrs. Marleen Lambourg, CEO of ML Advisie, and a really recognized expert on competencies and profiles in Belgium. And on the other hand, Jeroen Doom, who is director of Woodwise, which is the sectoral organization for wood and furniture in Belgium, governed by the social partners. So first of all, let us look to the profession of the joiners, look to the video and listen to the comments of Marleen and Jeroen.
Nou ja, ik vind mijn houtwerken vind ik leuk en met mijn handen bezig zijn vind ik ook leuk.
Wij werken met hout, massief hout. We maken kozijnen. Eens kijk, nog hout. Even langs kijken wat de hol aan de bovenkant is.
Ja, de werkvoorbereider slash leidinggevende in principe, die stuurt ons aan en die zegt wat wij moeten doen.
En nog 67. Ja, dan vink je hem aan. Als machinaal houtwerker ben je heel veel met machines bezig. Het instellen, het aansturen van de machine. Computers zijn in die zin heel belangrijk. Het wordt bij de werkvoorbereiding neergelegd en dan gaat het naar de CNC-machines. En die sturen eigenlijk de machines aan en wij hebben dan een controlerende functie erin.
Ja.
En kijk de coördinaten, die kan je dan lezen.
Ja.
Dat is belangrijk.
Wat ik nog wel moeilijk vind in de werkplaats zeg maar, is het aansturen van de CNC-machine. Want als daar iets fout gaat, dan kan het fataal zijn voor de machine. Door de begeleiding van Jacob gaat dat zeer goed.
Ja.
Dat begeleidt mij eigenlijk altijd perfect. Ik denk dat het essentieel is dat je hier altijd nauwkeurig bent. Dat je altijd oplet en dat je nooit iets vlug wil maken.
Keurig. Rob doet het goed. Rob is heel leergierig en hij zoekt zijn grenzen goed op. Dus dat komt goed met hem.
Fijn om te horen. Goedemiddag Bram, heb je lekker boterhammen gehad?
Ja, ik heb lekker gegeten.
Dan is het goed. Elke dag een jaar lang kozijn moet maken, dan zal het wel eentonig zijn. Maar ja, je bent deuren en ramen erbij aan het maken die ook afgestemd zijn op het kozijn, maar dat moet allemaal passen. Dus daarom is het zo divers en leuk.
Hoe zou jij je job omschrijven?
Ik moet ervoor zorgen dat er zoveel mogelijk goede producten door de machines worden geproduceerd eigenlijk. Ik moet kwaliteitsmetingen uitvoeren. Ik moet gereedschappen vervangen. Ja, en als er een kwaliteit niet goed is, dan moet ik gaan zoeken van waar komt dat en dat bijregelen.
Denk je dat je functie hier binnen 10 jaar er anders zou uitzien als nu?
Dat is eigenlijk moeilijk te zeggen. Ik denk wel dat er meer gaat bijkomen. Misschien meer machines waar ik ga bijleren. Maar dat mijn job volledig anders er nog gaat uitzien, dat kan ik niet echt zeggen. Ik denk dat je wel vooral stressbestendig moet zijn, onder druk kunnen werken. Je moet wel een technische vaardigheid hebben over machines. En ook wel een oog voor kwaliteit. Je moet goed je kwaliteit kunnen bepalen, zien wat er goed is.
Wat vind je leuk aan je job? Wat motiveert je?
Als er bijvoorbeeld producten uit het machine komen, ik pak die regelmatig een keer vast en ik kijk ernaar, ik voel daar een keer aan de kantenband en zo. En als dat er goed aanvoelt en dat ziet er goed uit, dat maakt mij een dag goed en dan ben ik blij.
Hoe zou jij het beroepsprofiel van machinaal houtbewerker beschrijven?
Bij ons zou ik het beschrijven als steller van een afkantmachine. Die er eigenlijk gaat voor zorgen om verschillende componenten van een lade binnen de kwaliteits- en vooropgestelde normen worden gefabriceerd.
En welke competenties heeft iemand nodig om die job uit te voeren?
Die heeft verschillende competenties nodig. Die heeft één kwaliteit, oog hebben voor kwaliteit, technisch inzicht ook. Want uiteindelijk moet hij ook een stukje de frezen gaan vervangen, de toolcel van de machine. Je moet ook planmatig kunnen werken, je moet kunnen communiceren met andere departementen. Er werkt heel nauw samen met ons technisch departement. Dus die moet daar een brug kunnen maken vanuit de verlangens van zijn machine. Je moet ook zijn machine willen en kunnen begrijpen. Maar je moet ook vooral het gevoel hebben met hout. Hout is daar zeer belangrijk, het product ook kunnen begrijpen. Wat moet het afregelen, die zaak.
Denk je dat de jobinhoud naar de toekomst toe nog zou kunnen wijzigen?
Ik vermoed het wel bij ons. Het is zo, initieel zijn wij begonnen met een machinesteller op die machine bij te plaatsen om de branding te blussen van het moment zelf. Nu zijn we meer naar de diepte aan het gaan, echt het verwisselen van tooling, het afregelen van de machine. En toekomstgericht zou dat uitgebreid worden naar meerdere machines. Een aantal machines bij ons draaien autonoom vandaag en die vragen ook al wat interventies. Dus vandaar dat we daar de uitbreiding zien van een machinesteller ook op de andere machines.
So now we can go to the next profession, or to the comments of Marleen and Jeroen. Marleen and Jeroen, the floor is yours to comment on this first core profession in the furniture industry, profession of joiner.
Okay, good morning. Starting to share my screen. We missed a bit of our introduction. So we will come back to that maybe after, because we just saw the video of the joiner, and we come back to the aims of the project and the methodology we used after this. So just to stay in the flow, I will comment the joiner. First of all, we looked at the profile of a joiner as it is now. Not as Mr. Van Hoeken said, we did look at some future developments, but first of all, the aims of the project was transparency of the current profiles and maybe to see how it could develop in the future. So we looked at the joiner, we saw these videos, we saw what he or she does, what the skills and knowledge and competences are that they need. And we had some findings that are far more detailed in the report, and where we also talked about the context. You can have the joiner in an industrial context, or you can have a joiner in a more craftsmanship context. Mostly we will find a joiner in this industrial context, as we saw in the video. Regardless the context, we could define a core profile for the joiner. And the main findings of this core profile are that he or she always needs good technical skills. Good technical skills to conduct woodworking machinery. So these machines can be computerized, can be more traditional. And he or she must select the right programs and be able to adapt the parameters, the settings, check the conditions of the tools. Sometimes he will need to replace the tools and so on. And this is linked with the third quality standards. We saw that checking the quality is very important. So the joiner needs to verify the products if they comply with the defined quality standards, as well as complying with the health, safety, and environmental procedures. And as I said, we also looked at which future there could be for the joiner. And concerning the future developments of the profile of the joiner, we found that she will evaluate more and more to an operator within a broader production flow, where he or she must be able to conduct more machines, and probably in a semi or fully automated production line. So these are the main findings of the joiner. Now we can go back for the second video for the cabinet maker.
Het bedrijf bestaat al 158 jaar. In principe leg je hem zo neer. Mooi gaatje. In principe maken we meubels voor de basisscholen en kinderdagverblijven. En voor de rest doen we ook heel veel toeleveringswerk. Nou, meet hem nog eventjes. Van bankstoelrompen tot uitvaartkisten. Er zit van alles tussen.
Nou, dit is dus een onderdeel van de pinbak. Ik ben nu ongeveer 3-4 maanden bezig hier. Je moet gewoon kunnen schuren, je moet met machines om kunnen gaan. Je moet goed aan de regels houden.
Nou, het zijn de stoelklosjes. Hier heb je de tekening. Zo de 45 lang. Gaatje in het midden.
Het is echt precies werk, dus je moet altijd gefocust zijn en echt opletten wat je doet.
Dat pakt het hartstikke goed op. Ik ben zeer tevreden over Simon. Hier bij Schild hebben we echt wel te maken met heel veel verschillende machines. En dat leer je niet allemaal op school. Dat is wel een hele grote uitdaging als je beginnend bent. Als je naar bovenaf kijkt, dan kan je zien dat hij mooi in het midden van het houtbrandboor is. Ik vind het heel leuk om kennis te delen, zodat mensen opgeleid kunnen worden. Het is ook heel erg belangrijk voor de toekomst van het bedrijf. Dus ik ben heel blij dat er nog steeds voldoende jonge mensen die opleidingen willen gaan volgen. Dus je houdt hem hier vast en je houdt hier je hand erachter. Dat je niet wegschuift.
Ik wil voor scheepsbouw interieur gaan. Dus echt op grote jachtschepen het binnenwerk gaan doen. Dat lijkt me echt heel mooi werk. En ja, hopelijk uiteindelijk wel mijn eigen bedrijf, maar dat zien we dan wel.
Je moet het eigenlijk gewoon leuk vinden om te doen. De rest kan je leren.
Cualificados hay pocos, realmente cualificados. Entonces, se suelen quedar en las empresas que están trabajando. Entonces, de una forma u otra, tienes que estar tú formándolos en la empresa y te los haces tú mismo en la empresa y aprenden en la misma empresa. Entonces, hoy en día tienes que ir a buscar trabajadores de otro sector y formártelos, o si no, aprendices que vienen, que no saben nada y también formarlos. Pues podríamos distinguir en los trabajadores actuales dos tipos de trabajadores operarios en lo que sería en la fabricación del mueble. Los que ya tienen una experiencia laboral elevada, que son los mayores, y los más jóvenes, que estos no tienen esta experiencia, pero saben tecnológicamente que saben hacer funcionar muchas cosas en tecnología. Nos haría falta unas habilidades más que vayan encaminadas más de cara a la tecnología actual que cada vez es más, evoluciona más deprisa. La tecnología va mucho más deprisa que lo que realmente se invierte en tecnología. Pero que las mismas empresas que fabriquen la máquina después tienen que hacer el curso preparativo para hacer funcionar la máquina. formativos no están al día, y esto tal vez aquí tenemos algo de carencia. Después, por otra parte, creo que se podría establecer una bifurcación dentro de lo que es el sector de la madera, que se imparte en los mismos centros de formación profesional. Se podría decir que tendríamos que formar de una forma básica lo que es la madera en general, y después que se bifurcase en dos ramas, un poco lo que sería la fabricación del mueble y otro tanto en lo que sería en la fabricación de la madera para la construcción, que no tiene nada que ver con la fabricación del mueble.
So the second profile we analyzed was the profile of the cabinet maker. We developed the first core profile for the cabinet maker in the previous Bolster-Up project, and we started from there, and we checked if this profile was still up to date. If the profile in the new countries that participated in the second project also resulted in a same or similar profile, and we also checked if there was an evolution in this core profile. As we saw in the video, we saw that for the cabinet maker, the context is also important for the definition of the core profile. In our core profile for the cabinet maker, we found that the demanded technical skills, for instance, for a cabinet maker, are not the same as for a carpenter, even though we see in training and education that these profiles are often mixed up in one curricula or one training program. So the main findings of the joiner are also applicable here, especially concerning the technical skills, working with computerized or more traditional machines, selecting the right programs and adapting the parameters, the settings and the tools. So as I said before, the context will define if the cabinet maker in a more craftsmanship setting needs to have direct contact with the customer, and he or she therefore needs a customer-oriented attitude, or in a more industrial setting, he or she needs to work in a team and collaborate with other departments. Teamwork means here, for example, the internal customer-oriented attitude. For the future developments, as we saw before and also in the presentation of Peter van Hoeken, the digitalization will shape the future developments of this profile. The need for new and other digital skills, a new mindset and awareness of lifelong learning and adaptability. All these developments we elaborated more in depth in our report, and if you still want to go further in this digitalization and the future of digitalization in the furniture industry, I recommend reading the report of the DigitFur project, as mentioned also in the introduction by Rolf. Now we can go to the third video for the upholsterer.
Dit is de kniptafel. Hier is Theo aan het knippen en aan het mallen aan het doen. Dat gebeurt hier. Hier gebeurt het stikken. Hier wordt de stof aan elkaar vastgestikt. Het lijkt mij leuk om meubelserveerder te worden, omdat het anders is dan de rest. Je doet veel met je handen En daar ben ik goed in. Vind ik leuk om te doen. Ik doe ook thuis zelf gamen. En dan heb je ook controller in je hand. En dan doe je ook veel met je handen.
Als meubelstoffeerder doen wij herstofferen van bestaande meubels. We maken ook nieuwe meubels, projecten voor nieuwbouw, maar ook jachten.
Je moet onder andere een teamplayer zijn. Je moet goed met je handen kunnen werken, je moet gemotiveerd zijn.
Het is heel erg leuk om het vak ook door te geven aan een nieuwe generatie. Het is een heel mooi vak waarbij heel veel gevoel van materialen bij komt kijken. En dat gevoel gaat allemaal in je vingers zitten.
De stoel is nu helemaal opnieuw gestoffeerd. Er zijn nieuwe sierspijkers ingegaan. Hij ziet er weer als nieuw uit en hij is nu super tof. Is nu helemaal mooi. Dus we gaan hem wegzetten.
Hi, my name is Tonja. I do the study for upholsterer at the HMC Wood and Furniture College in Amsterdam.
Why did you choose upholstery?
Well, I did carpenter first. I got my degree on that, but I wanted to be more all-round, so that's why I chose upholsterer. Turns out I enjoy this more than like making furniture. So yeah, that's how I got here.
Are you interested to study abroad?
Yeah, I would. I think it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. So yeah, I would be interested.
And what kind of skills would you like to learn outside?
Well, maybe they have a different way of upholstering furniture. So I'd like to see how they do that and how it works in a business for them. That's what I'd like to learn there, see what they do.
So for this profile of the upholsterer, we also started from the core profile that was developed in the previous Bolster-Up project, where we saw that a joiner works more likely in an industrial context, and the cabinet maker can work in both. For the upholsterer, we see often a more traditional context than the industrial side. Nevertheless, we describe the whole core profile with these contexts in the report. In the core profile for the upholsterer, we found that he or she needs all-round technical skills and in-depth knowledge of materials and techniques. It is the most traditional profile out of the three, where there is still an important part of handwork. The context defines, just as for the cabinet maker, where an upholsterer needs more the customer-oriented attitude or the collaborative attitude to work in a team with other departments. Digitalization is also here the main driver for change of the future profile of an upholsterer. Simulation models, digital process control, working together with cobots will become reality soon. There is also an evolution towards design thinking, and upholstery becomes more service-oriented. Think of new business models, for instance, in the circular economy. So for these three profiles, we had some similar conclusions in the project. One of the conclusions is that the context is very important. Craftsmanship, tailor-made, small series, or as Van Hoeke called it, mass customization, can also be in industrial production. And the link between craftsmanship and industrial production becomes less visible. As we saw in the profiles, in the videos, and also in the presentation of Van Hoeke, the future is digital. If you want to know how this impacts our future professions, as I said before, we suggest you look into the well-elaborated study of DigitFur, where we analyzed the future evolution of all these profiles really in depth. Beside the technical skills, attitude and behavior, for example, adaptability, the willingness to learn, etc., becomes more important. The scope where and on which machines a furniture professional works in enlarges, from single tasks to process responsibility. Personal responsibility is very important, especially when we talk about quality, health and safety, and environmental issues. And we saw it also in the presentation of Van Hoeke in his human-centered production. And as a furniture professional in Europe, we need to focus on the quality of the project. And quality is not the issue of one person, but must be attained in a team. The second part of our conclusions are based or are aiming at education and training. Training institutes, industry and machine and software developers need to collaborate from school-based to dual learning, so school and workplace together, but also with support of specialized training centers or with support from machine and software developers. As we saw also in one of the videos, our youngsters are open for international mobility, as well in an educational context as for work experience. I think after the break, we can go deeper into this and see how the EU and the sectoral social partners can support this. So in this ends our presentation of the report. Everything can be found on the website with the report in 7 languages and in-depth, more detailed conclusions are available there. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeroen and Marleen, for your comments on the 3 core profiles that we discussed this morning. I wonder if Peter is still with us online, because we have a question for him. Peter, are you still online?
Yes, I am. So can you hear me?
Peter. Yes, thank you, Peter. We clearly hear you. One of the questions to you is, how do you challenge your company, or did you challenge your company going, let's say, from the old way of working towards the future with dealing with networking, new technologies, and so on?
Well, we every year we gather, let's say, a few teams which come from different departments, and we give them a task. So one team gets the task to challenge our business model, to disrupt our business model. So in fact, to act as a kind of a nightmare competitor. So the one you don't want to meet in your market. And of course, they are very good at it, because they are allowed to sit on the other end of the table and to do just the opposite against our business model. So they create strategies. Of course, they know our weaknesses, and they create strategies where the other team has to find solutions for. And out of this this play game, of course, there is a lot of interaction and a lot of new ideas coming up. And then we do this 3 times. And so the teams, they change. The team that was the competitor becomes a team that becomes a defender. And so we do this. And out of those challenge, as we call this nightmare competitor challenges, we get, every year we get a few brilliant ideas that influence our business model for the future.
Okay. Do you have the time for one more question, Peter?
Yeah, I will.
The second question is, how do you manage competence management in your firm? Is it a personalized system? Is it a team-based system? Do you use certain profiles, core profiles, or do you use your own experience?
Yeah, we have created our own model for that. So if we talk about organizational development, we always talk about the triangle between task, person, and team. So first of all, we have to make a list of the tasks we need within a team to perform at our best. If we have this list of tasks, then we match it with the skills of the people. So the people and the skills. And if we put those people together, then we see the strengths and the weaknesses of the team. And there where we see weaknesses, we go into education, training, and further increasing the competences of the individual to contribute to the team. And then, of course, within the team, we try to make the team as competent as possible, that everyone can do everyone's job. Of course, it goes only in homogeneous teams where the jobs are quite the same. But we try to educate them that everybody can take every other one's tasks once in a while, so that we have this continuous change of competences within the team.
Okay, that's a perfect illustration of lifelong learning on the work floor.
Which I'm absolutely convinced about. I think this will be one of our society's biggest challenges. That is to get the education at that level of quality that people who are leaving school are have the enthusiasm to continuously wanting to learn new things. Because I strongly have the impression today that our schools are delivering young people who are absolutely bored with schooling, bored with training, and then they said, finally, I'm off school and now I'm going to work. But that's not how it functions. We need it in the past. You got your education results and you got your profession, and then with this diploma, you finished your whole career, 40 years long. Today, the work will change every 2 to 3 years. The content of work will change, and therefore people need to have a kind of an appetite to learn. And how do we learn our young people appetite for learning? So that, I think, it's one of the biggest challenges for the school system.
Okay, thanks. Maybe a question for Jeroen and Marleen. Yeah, we have seen those 3 core profiles. Let's say these are written documents based on what companies need, what are the competences need for the different professions. But how can you make these profiles attractive for young people who still have to choose a profession for the future?
Yeah, difficult question. Attractiveness of our sector is a problem in most of the European countries. Maybe I should send this question back to Rolf, because there is or we have some ideas on a European project about the attractiveness for youngsters. Anyway, in Belgium, we are working on it since several years. And as I compare it to other technical sectors, we are not doing that bad. But comparing to, let's say, the more general studies, it is always very difficult to convince the parents that our sector is also a modern and high technological sector. So that's one of the points that we always take into consideration, and that we want to show that with factories, as we saw at Van Hoeke, that this kind of factories, we don't need only people who can work with their hands, but they also have to work with their head. So it's a challenging sector. It evaluates constantly and so on. So we're working on it, but it's not an easy task, and it's especially a work of a very long term before we can see any results.
And one way to promote the core profiles is the job branding. As we saw in the videos, I can imagine that for youngsters, it's a nice way to have an idea what is the job, what is the content of the job, the working environment. And I was very impressed by the videos and also by the presentation of Peter Van Hoeken and all the separate videos on the core profiles. So in my opinion, it's a good start to promote the core profiles.
Thanks. And can dual learning become a solution to make these professions more attractive for young people?
Yes, I'm convinced of it. In Flanders, we have the support of the government to develop dual learning in wood and furniture sector more and more. We see that there's still not that many interest from youngsters, or as I said, often also from the parents. But the results that we asked last year from the students that came out of this dual learning, and from the companies that had a student in dual learning, the results are very positive. And now we are working with that to also to promote this dual learning. Also there, we started some years ago together with other partners, European partners, to exchange more students in this technical and vocational trainings and education. And I think this also can help with the attractiveness of our sector, that also these youngsters can go abroad to work in a company and to learn this other ways of working in companies. Because Erasmus is very well known in universities, but is not so well known for vocational education and training. So this part we also try to promote more and more, and we tend to develop more projects or international projects for it also.
Okay, one last question for Marleen. Marleen, you are a recognized expert working with different sectoral organizations. So do you consider this project as a best practice for other sectors?
Of course, it was a pleasure to participate in this project, and also the idea to share all the insights, the way of the core profiles are developed in the different countries. It's to me, it's a good practice to launch this kind of initiatives, and actually also referring to the social dialogue. To me, it's very important that in this way we can promote and work on the competency development of profiles in the industry, and also for the future of the industry.
Okay, thank you very much, Marleen and Jeroen, for your comments and recommendations. Now we will have a 5-minute coffee break, and we will be back in 5 minutes to continue our program. Well, welcome to the second part of our conference. And now we will have a panel discussion about training and education with three eminent panelists. First of all, Mr. Felix Roon, who is a policy officer at DG Employment of the European Commission. Welcome, Mr. Roon. The second speaker is Jens Björnavold from the European Center for the Development of Vocational Training. I always call him the father of the strategy regarding the validation of formal, non-formal, and informal learning outcomes. Welcome, Jens, to our webinar. And the third one is Mrs. Sandra Rietveld, the team manager of AMC, the Hout en Meubileringscollege located at Amsterdam and Rotterdam in the Netherlands. Welcome, all of you. You have 3 minutes, each of you, for your initial statement on this project. I first give the floor to Mr. Roon from the DG Employment.
Yes, thank you for the floor. I remember 10 years ago, we were together with Rolf Gehring sitting in a room in Brussels, and we had a project meeting, a project that was implemented under the then EU program Leonardo da Vinci for vocational training. And this project was indeed about vocational core profiles. So you already worked on core profiles 10 years ago, and since then we made a long way, because sector-based projects like this one, where the example of a project that we developed, the Sector Skills Alliances. And Sector Skills Alliances also gave the idea to the strategic framework, the blueprint for sectoral cooperation on skills. And this is what you are doing here with this project, which is already the Bolster-Up 2, so the second one. And yeah, very interesting to listen. So you asked my perspective, what are the challenges we encounter from the European level when it comes, for instance, to traineeship and apprenticeship programs and their implementation in the member states. Well, I will identify 6 such challenges. And the first one, of course, is the COVID-19 pandemic, with a strong impact on education and training, massive closure of schools, starting to try online teaching and learning, but of course accompanied by deficiencies, by technical problems, apprenticeships which live off being on site in the company could no longer take place due to the lockdown. When switching to online teaching, not all learners had the same access to IT technology, or they had deficient internet access. And that, of course, led to frustrations and the risk of early dropouts and learners disengaging with learning, and particularly true for vet learners, of course. The second challenge is the EU response to the crisis. Fortunately, member states had a sense of urgency to act and to come together, and they set up massive EU-level financing instruments. We have our multi-annual framework proposals. In negotiation, these include Erasmus, ESF, and the Regional Development Fund, but we will see how the implementation will be. This is the challenge. The third challenge is new impetus on skills. So we have the industry and SME policy strategy from March 2020. We have the skills agenda from July 2020, including also the Council recommendation on vocational education and training. And also to equip young people and adults with the right skills for the green and digital transition. Then upcoming is the European education area and the digital education action plan, which we expect for end of December. The fourth challenge is apprenticeships. There are significant differences throughout Europe. You have already noticed this during this conference. We support this at European level with the European Alliance for Apprenticeships. We want to increase the offer, the quality and image of apprenticeships. And yeah, there is also a council recommendation on the quality and the effectiveness of apprenticeships with 14 common criteria. Apprenticeships are certainly since quite long a pillar of EU VET policy and are included as first among 5 medium-term deliverables in the Riga conclusions. And the apprenticeships are also at the core of the Commission proposal for the Council recommendation on VET. So we want to move forward to more apprenticeships, including for adults, so also in continuing vocational training. Yes, and then the fifth challenge is the future implementation of the sectoral blueprints. So on the cooperation on skills under the Erasmus Plus program. This is linked to the Pact for Skills. And then also a new action, Centers of Vocational Excellence. They can be also without sectoral focus. Here, I would like to draw your attention on an existing or starting alliance of Centers of Vocational Excellence in the furniture and wood sector. And yes, it's the leader is in the Murcia region in Spain. And they have very important partners in several countries. They have VET providers on board, companies, higher education institutions, employment services, and a European association and a public authority. And I can bring you in contact with them if you don't have it already. So at this point, I stop.
Okay, Mr. Björnevold, up to you.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. It's really a great project, and I think I will repeat what somebody said here just a few minutes ago, that this is really a best practice project. It's really showing a very good use of, let's say, learning outcomes, how to express competences, how to capture skills competences. It's also referring to the EQF in a very constructive way, showing the need also for a European reference point. So in that sense, I was very happy to read the report and see also the progress made now from Bolster 1 into Bolster 2. So really congratulations to the work which has been done, which is very, I think, important in the overall discussion on core profiles and also European cooperation in this area. I would like to raise a few questions and ideas regarding the project and the proposal, which might be discussed and perhaps also lead to the follow-up of the project. Because the first thing I noticed when I start reading the report is that there's a reference to minimum kind of European standards. I also see later in the report that these profiles are placed at EQF level 3. To me, this signals perhaps a lack of ambition, because if we say that the European furniture industry is world-class and it should stay world-class, is minimum standards the right signal? Is it the right signal to level these qualifications at level 3 in a way? Most VET qualifications in Europe are at level 4. So what is the ambition here? Is minimum standards what we should speak about? I think perhaps the term core standards, core profiles in a way, perhaps profiles for excellence is perhaps even a better name. I think it's about what are we signaling here? We are not signaling lower quality, we should actually signal higher quality. So that's the first point. Then I notice in the report there seems to be an implicit focus on initial vocational education training for young people. And this is fair enough. This is very important. It's the new generation. How do you actually make people go into this area? On the other hand, I see that these core profiles are perhaps just as important for continuing vocational education training for adults. And perhaps I'm missing a little bit of discussion on this in a way. How could these core profiles actually be a reference points for lifelong learning, for continuing vocational training? How can they support as a reference point for example, recognition of prior learning, validation for the internal competence development processes in companies? I think they really have a big potential there, and they would also link together the focus on profiles for initial vocational education training and for continuing training, in a way completing this kind of lifelong learning perspective. So I think that is important. I also, in a way, perhaps question, or I would like to discuss in a way, there's a focus on tasks and functions in these occupations and in these particular areas of occupations. And I think that is fair, that's legitimate. On the other hand, what we know about initial qualifications, of course, they contain skills, competences linked to these tasks, functions, but they also contain important general subjects. They contain important references to transversal, to broader skills and competences linked to teamwork, to problem solving, all these kind of things, which are mentioned. But I think the balance here between the general subjects, the tasks, functions, in a way, I think is important in discussing a modern initial vocational education training program. So that's, I think, an important discussion to have when we take forward this. The final thing I would say, and that is I guess something which is a more political discussion, is the sustainability of these kind of projects. As I think Felix Thron was touching, and also which was touched at the beginning, there's been many projects, perhaps not called core profiles, but certainly trying to do the same. Even as early as in the beginning of the 2000s, we had something called sustainable professionalization, which tried to do exactly the same as we are seeing now, but they didn't survive. They were not taken up by national authorities. So the question, which I think here, is how do we use this excellent product in a way which, so to say, has an impact at national level and in the end have an impact for the individual learners? And that's what I wanted to say. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your interesting remarks concerning this project, Jens. And now I hand over the floor to Mrs. Rietveld for her comments.
Thank you. Hello. We also, as HMC, are challenged by the COVID, and it challenges us to focus on which skills are really important, fundamental, and necessary for our students to learn. The furniture industry continues to develop the skills that cabinet maker had to know 10 years ago and were different from the cabinet maker today. As an educational organization, we want to train students who are well prepared for the future. Many developments go fast, require a greater degree of digital skills and a lot of collaboration with other entrepreneurs and parties. As an educational organization, we prepare our students for this as well as possible. In addition to the traditional skills, our students work together with other parties. They learn to deal with innovative issues and techniques, and we encourage them to participate in internship abroad in order to develop skills they may need later. What many students indicate is that I'm sorry, they are mainly interested in looking at and learning about how things work in the furniture company in another country. Thanks to the Bolster-Up 2 project, a student knows what's expected of him in a work situation or internship other than his own country. This can give extra confidence to take this step and thus simulate even more international exchange. We learn from experience that during these internships you can learn very valuable skills, and are more difficult to learn in a work situation in your own country. Students are taken out of their comfort zone and have to interact and communicate well in often other language, come up with solution, and often undergo major personal development in a relatively short periods of time. These are all parts of the 9 new skills that come from the Digit4 research new skills, knowledge and competences requirements, and are considered very important in the educational sector of the furniture industry in the Netherlands.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Rietveld. And now we will ask you some questions concerning your statements in this project. First of all, Mr. Rohn, which role can the European Union play in disseminating these kind of results and in promoting this approach towards this sector and other sectors? Do you see a role of European institutions or European networks in adapting these results so that they can really be implemented on national level?
Yeah, the implementation at national level, of course, depends on the respective member state, because the systems are national. And the systems are different. So in some member states, the system is more decentralized. They give more discretion to the education and training. And here I speak in particular of the vocational education and training institutes. In some member states, they have more flexibility to change the training content, to change the curricula. In other member states, they do not have this flexibility, or they have less flexibility. And here I think it needs lobbying, so to say, in order to persuade the authorities in such member states to integrate these project results into the national system. And here I think European networks can play an important role, because they have a more weight, so to say, for convincing the responsible authorities that this is necessary, that the sector needs it across borders, that the value chain needs these new training content.
Yeah.
And of course, as
I'm aware that
Union,
it's up to the national level to take these kind of measures. But of course, there are important European networks as well in public employment services, vocational training institutes, who could play a role in promoting this approach of implementing these results at the national level.
Absolutely, the networks have national members, and they of course they can, depending on the flexibility of the system, they can advance faster in those member states with decentralized system than in the centralized system. But the European Union is of course behind it, behind these projects. And for example, if we take apprenticeships, we have this European Alliance for Apprenticeship. So there we have our general policy also for vocational education and training. And there, of course, we cooperate with member states. So in that respect, we also support such projects and the exploitation of their results.
Okay. So a question for Mrs. Rietveld, going back to one of the recommendations made by Jens Björnevold, is how do you see, with your experience in the Netherlands, this balance between the technical skills and the more transversal, let's say, soft skills or competences of the 21st century? How do you see this balance, and how do you make sure that people not only acquire these technical skills, but also those soft skills? How do you do this concretely in your approach?
Sorry. I think we teach the students, for instance, things like critical thinking or problem solving. I think it's a combination of both that we try to teach. And I think it's very important that students learn traditional skills, but also the more innovative techniques. Yeah, I think that's what we try to do, to teach, to give them the whole, to learn them both. I think the combination is critical.
Okay. So Jens, you had a long history of working on non-formal and informal learning and competences and so on, and the validation of these acquired competences. Do you think they can play a role in also the validation of those transversal skills?
Yeah, I think that's quite essential. It of course brings us to the whole lifelong learning aspect, because of course we are learning through our practice, through our work, and so it's important to identify, to make visible these skills, competences, which perhaps are not so visible in the day-to-day, and to use this as a basis for continuous development, continuous learning in the enterprises. And that is why I mentioned that these core profiles are actually also quite important, not only for the initial education of young people, but also as a reference point for how you could develop the skills of adults, for people who are already into work. Because I think it's an issue of continuous development, continuous improvement of skills and competences. And I think these core profiles in many companies could play a very important role, and as a way of actually drawing attention to the perhaps more silent or invisible skills and competences. So to me, this is essential, and also shows the potential of this way of working, where you make learning or the learning requirements, objectives visible through learning outcomes. So yes.
Okay.
I would like to say
I have a question for Felix. Do we need easier permeability between vocational training and universities? It's also linked to another question about the distinction between universities and vocational training. Is such a distinction still appropriate if you look to the future with more robotization, more digitalization, more tailor-made production and so on? Do we still need to have this rather radical distinction between, let's say, learning and then on theoretical basis or more practical forms of learning?
I didn't hear in the very beginning the first phrase, the first question. Was it about mobility?
Yeah, if there's an easier mobility between vocational training and universities.
This mobility.
So should universities also include more practical forms of learning, for example, or have a better collaboration with companies or with training institutes?
Well, there's clearly a trend that the borders between higher education and vocational education and training are getting more and more blurred. There's also clearly a trend that member states open up the pillars. So if you have gone the vocational education and training path and have acquired a qualification that is vocational, that in most member states today you can go to university if you wish later on. I don't have now figures for the European Union, but I know that in Germany, though, there are not many VET graduates that choose to go to university later on. So that far to the vocational education and training part. If you look at the universities, you can see that member states like, for example, Italy, they have established higher technical institutes because they wanted to push technical education, but also training. Then you can see in Germany, for example, that there are so-called dual bachelors that you can acquire, where you have this dual system also at university level. So you work in a company and half time, and the other half you study. In France, you have also qualifications that are in between vocational education and training, mainly in the technical field. So yes, and universities in general, if you look at universities in Europe that are have a great standing and reputation, what they did in the past decades, I would say, is that they developed excellent relations with industry, with the business that is relevant to their academic subjects. And that made these universities excellent. And here we can see that work-based learning is very, very important. So in the wider sense, work-based learning, not only the classical apprenticeship, because, and here I can join to what Ms. Rittfeld, what you asked to Ms. Rittfeld regarding the soft skills, how to acquire them. It's through work-based learning, through practical hands-on learning, that you also require soft skills, because you are not on your own, you are not doing it in an isolated way. Or working in a company, working with other people, there you learn soft skills. And you also, and this we know from studies, when you go on a work placement abroad, you learn a lot of soft skills. I stop here.
Okay. So, Sandra, what do you think about the remark of Jens that this project lacks a certain ambition because it's only linked to level 3 of the qualification framework? Is that true, or is this a first step to elaborate also profiles on a higher level of this qualification framework? What's your experience, or do you think that the ambition you had at the start of the project is fulfilled with this project?
Well, first of all, I think we did not only focus on level 3, but also on level 4, if I'm correct. But yeah, if you look at all the countries involved, I think some countries do have levels for furniture or for the core profiles that are higher, but I think not every country has higher levels of education for these profiles. So I think that might be why we did it to level 4. I think that's
maybe is there any comment from the other project partners on this comment of Jens, Jeroen, or Felix, or Rolf? I don't know if you have any comments on this question concerning the ambitions of the project, or the future ambitions of the project. Is there someone available?
Yes. Yeah, first of all, about the defined level EQF3, we are aware that it's probably lacking ambition. It is a difficult discussion when we talk with several European countries. So these core profiles, we try to make, let's say, the most common profile out of these participating countries. Sandra can confirm, but in their institute, they have these different levels with 3 and 4. And also in Belgium, we are aiming at level 4, but also there, regarding the official instances that define the official level, it's not that easy to have vocational training or vocational education on a level 4. So it's a big discussion also with, for instance, the partners from education. A second aspect that I want to discuss or put in the group is that we had a project where we worked on transparency of the profiles. I think further on, and Rolf or Anna will complete that, but in the Memorandum of Understanding, we also integrate that we should enhance the level of the qualification. So the aim is to become or to have profiles on level 4, but the current situation is mostly still on level 3. And maybe it's not that clear in our report, I agree.
And I remember also that during our discussion in the several workshops with the participants, that we refer to the minimum standards because in the European context, we needed to take into consideration that you have the core profiles in a traditional context versus an innovative context. And this is the reason that we applied, of course, the minimum standards.
Okay, thanks for your
comments, Marie. And Rolf, you would also like to intervene on this issue?
Yes, thank you. First, I'd like to thank Jens for his very instructive comments. And it may look that we are not ambitious enough, and I feel so myself. But it is also a bit a lesson we learned from the first Bolster-Up project. So our basic idea of what we called at that time European core qualifications is, beside any harmonization, defining and agreeing on more the basics. And the lesson we learned is that bringing the message across, meaning to attract national stakeholders and get them on board, is extremely difficult. So it was a bit the level we formulated was a bit the minimum level we could agree on, because those who were involved in the project were single people from a training institute, a social partner organization, or another stakeholder. And then they went back to their country with the results and need to find open ears, let's say, in a first step. So that is a bit the problem. Nevertheless, I think meanwhile, we have a broader, let's say, discussion, and maybe something like an acceptance of these concepts. And insofar, I think we should go a step further. And one thing you mentioned is further training. We need to integrate proposals for further training, and especially of importance, the transferable skills, the general skills we have not considered enough. So yeah, but I myself would also raise a question to those who knows a bit better than us. We can present our results also to other European social dialogues, maybe using the liaison forum as a possibility. But do you know, or do you think that this concept of European core profiles could also, or is maybe already taken over or taken up in other social dialogues? Thank you.
Felix.
Okay, yeah. Well, I couldn't now for sure say, but according to my memory, I feel that this subject has already been discussed also in other social dialogues. I used to speak from time to time on meetings of the social partners of different sectors, and normally it's on sectoral cooperation on skills. And this is certainly an issue where social partners are interested in. I can certainly help you if you want to present your core profiles of this project and maybe of previous projects even to the liaison forum, or if you tell me we would like to speak to this sector because this is a kind of neighboring sector, of course I will get you in contact with the colleagues in DG Employment that are dealing with the sectoral social dialogues. And then in this context, it might interest you that finally, after a long time being reluctant, and member states are interested in the concept of core profiles, vocational core profiles, and not only vocational, in fact. And there are already discussions in the education committee of the council exploring work between European Union and the member states on core profiles. So the ground becomes more fertile.
Okay. I have a question for Jens. Could the concept of European core profiles, qualifications, and centers of excellence contribute to the mutual recognition of qualifications?
Yeah, obviously it can, but that requires take-up in a way also at national level. I think the ideas as principles are certainly have some potential, but I think the problem, as we've seen, let's say over the last, let's say even 20, even perhaps even more years, is that these projects don't survive the project phase in a way. The take-up at national level is the problem, and I think that is the challenge we are facing now in a way. How can we, is the now ground fertile enough to actually take up these ideas? I would just like to add to what Felix said about the core profiles, because I think in the current VET policy discussions on for example, there's a proposal from the Commission on the VET recommendation. There's also the Osnabrück Declaration from the member states, the social partners, and in both these documents there is a reference to the idea of core profiles. So I think in this sense, I think the Bolster-Up projects are really in a very good position to demonstrate how this concept has been taken forward. So I think this is really a good opportunity now to also present this to other sectors in line with the policy focus and policy emphasis on this. So but these are of course issues, that the relationship between these different things and how it influences transparency, mobility is of course a broader discussion, which I'm happy to take part in perhaps at another occasion. So yeah.
Yes, is this not a necessary step if we want to promote the mobility of people, workers within the European Union, that you have standard qualifications which are easily recognized in all the member states, so that transitions can make more smoothly and more swiftly than in the past. So I think this is a way to also stimulate people to move towards other European member states, because you know what are your acquired competences, and that okay, your minimum standard is also available in other member states. So I think there's still a role. I know it's always difficult on a political level to discuss what's the role of the European Union and what's the role of member states, but I think we still see more the necessity of stronger coordination and stronger dissemination of good practices within Europe. And I think this project is best practice which should be put into practice in the different national authorities. And for me also, as a former CEO of a public employment service, I think this kind of profile should be used all over Europe by public employment service, so that they can match on the same way in Belgium or in Italy or in Romania. So I think this is a way to also stimulate the mobility within Europe. What do you think, Felix?
Yeah, of course that would also support mobility, though if we are frank, then we must admit that the Europeans are not so mobile, in
Yeah.
fact. But it's true, of course, it depends always on the situation on the labor market. So yes, people, of course, if they have not good prospects in their home labor market, they move to other member states, and then it would be a waste of resources, of skills, if these skills would not be recognized. I would like also to hint to ESCO, the European Compendium for Skills, Competences and Qualifications. I can also bring you in contact with ESCO, because the ESCO team, which works in my unit, would be certainly interested in your project results.
Okay. I look to the time, so luckily we don't have the time to discuss longer about this approach. So many thanks to our three panelists, Mr. Rohn, Mr. Björneveld, and Mrs. Rietveld, for your contribution to this project. I conclude that, that the sector still has other ambitions, also to other level of the European qualification framework, that we should take into account also that it's useful in the case of continuous vocational learning, but that there's also European networks and European organizations who could promote this kind of approach, so that we have also a social and transparent Europe also on competences and qualifications. Many thanks for your contribution to this conference. And now we will go to the last part of this conference, and that's was also already mentioned by Jeroen, and that's the memory of understanding, which will be introduced by Mrs. Anna Dijan, who is the project manager of the Croatian Wood Cluster, and Mr. Danis Keerling, a policy officer for the sectoral social dialogue at the European Commission. I hand over the floor to you, Mrs. Dijan.
Thank you very much. So, hello from Zagreb. I have to tell you that I'm absolutely thrilled with the conversation until now, because we are talking about implementation of the project results, and this is actually the most important part of the project, in my opinion. I'm head of the Department for Projects and International Cooperation, and one of my biggest concerns when we start to implement any project is how to implement the results and how to reach the responsible people. And I'm afraid I haven't found any good solution until now. And in my personal opinion, I think that this is also one big question for the future, and that the Commission itself should be more actively involved at some point. But let me tell you something about the Memorandum of Understanding. I think this might be also a part of the solution, how to gather people around some topic and make some real results out of the project results in the practice. Just a moment. Now we should start. We all agree that the education system in general is under the great pressure. So it was before the pandemic, and I think that now it's even more. At the same time, the value of qualification comes very much on the trust in the teaching system, and especially when it comes to the vocational education. This is what the memorandum is about, actually. So it is meant to be an impulse for the improvement of the quality and raising of the capacities of the national systems of vocational education. But what does it mean? So why do we actually need this impulse? On the one side, we have the trends influencing our lives heavily. And I would say there are three main trends. So mobility, it is also something that we have talked about today. So the need for mobility was very high before the pandemic, and now it's the same, but with the great limitations. The second trend is the growing competition in the industry due to the globalization process. And climate change, of course, and the need, which pushes to move faster towards circular economy or bio-based economy or just greener economy, mainly due to the lacking resources. So those are the trends at the moment, and we need to find an answer on those trends and challenges, also in the system of vocational education. So it is very hard to harmonize the answers in one national educational system, and imagine how it is and how complex would it be on the EU level. At the same time, the experts agree that we do need an improved coordination of national policies when it comes to the vocational training. And here comes our memorandum. I mean, the project idea itself, because we don't want to make it more complicated and introduce new standards, but we have tried to offer a platform, develop a tool which will guarantee a minimum training standards. Aiming to set it into the practice, we have also set the three operational objectives, which are described in detail in the final report of the project, which can be downloaded on the website. To summarize it, we firstly described the three core profiles to better understand them. And it was quite a challenging thing to do, but I think that we have made it. Then we have set the platform to facilitate this this social dialogue on the EU level. And by this memorandum, we also wanted to contribute to the further development of the three core profiles, and as already emphasized, to support the promotion towards other sectors. In the end, so the memorandum is supposed to be the part of the process which shall contribute to the process of making our workers more competitive, more flexible, which I would say are two main characteristics which are the most important today. And exactly those two characteristics will support the sustainability of the European furniture sectors. So we invite you to join. We invite you to join actively, and we don't want that this memorandum and the whole project becomes just another paper in our drawers. Thank you.
We can go to Danny for his interesting remarks.
Yes, I think I'm there. Good morning. It's still Good morning, and I thank Anna for this explanation of the plan to design a memorandum, which is certainly a good idea because it proves that there is cooperation between the social partners. It's a formalized way to implement the results of the project. And for me, it proves that the social dialogue as such is at EU level is becoming more and more result-oriented. So such a manner of understanding would be good proof of that. We are always in favor of joint opinions between European social partners. The project in itself is already a clear and a very valuable output, and it will be the basis for discussion in the two sectoral social dialogue committees involved. Excuse me. So maybe a few words on what EU social dialogue is about. It is, I think, the meetings of the social partners, which our unit supports, are a very interesting forum to address sectoral needs and challenges, and there will be challenges in the future. That is clear. Digitization is a challenge, restructuring in general, because the crisis we are experiencing will obviously have an impact on the industries. Mobility, as has been said, is also an issue that can be discussed at EU level. Social partners are best placed to discuss those issues, and the EU level is very important, the EU level approach, because if we take the core profiles which we have been discussing this morning, I think that coordination and harmonization of such profiles can only be are preferably discussed at EU level. So maybe if you allow me, and then I will be very short. In fact, I'll keep it short. So it has been said that actually vocational education and training is not really a remit of the European Union, and certainly the question will arise: why has this project been funded by the social dialogue unit and the social dialogue budget lines? Well, actually, now I'm talking about a few years ago already. The Bolster-Up 1 project, which was funded by our colleagues of DG Education and Culture, was discussed regularly in the Furniture Sectoral Social Dialogue Committee. We have 43 sectoral social dialogue committees, and the furniture, as SDC as we call it, is one of them. The woodworking also is another one. And the original Bolster-Up project, which dealt with the core profiles of cabinet maker and upholsterer, was regularly put on the agenda there as an information point. And it became clear that it attracted also the interest of the woodworking industry and the Woodworking Sectoral Social Dialogue Committee, because these two committees, they have joint working groups on subjects related to vet, but also on occupational safety and health. But certainly in the vet working group, this attracted interest of the woodworking industry. So it ended up in a cooperation between two sectoral social dialogue committees, with cooperation in the Bolster-Up 2, the project we are discussing today. That is also why a third core profile was added, the one of joiner, which was actually more related to the woodworking committee as we see it. So we are very happy with this project, because it's actually a proof and a demonstration of synergies which may be built between two sectors, or cross-fertilization, as Mr. Sangalli said it in his opening words. Synergy is it makes the the result more effective. And it shows that there is increased strength if there is cooperation between two sectoral social dialogue committees. So I would say thank you for the result. The Memorandum of Understanding is certainly a good step forward, and I will stop here and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Dijan and Mr. Schering, for your positive words on the memory of understanding and the social dialogue. We're coming to the end of this conference, but before I hand over the floor to Tom Deleu, Secretary General of the European Federation of the Building and Woodworkers, I want to thank, first of all of you for your attention, your interesting questions, but also for your commitment in the past, but also in the future. I want to thank the interpreters and also the staff who organized this online conference. And now the closing words are up to you, Tom Deleu.
Yes, thank you very much. Actually, you already did a bit of my job on thanking everyone. So and I will keep it short. I think we had a very good conference, a very interactive conference. I think we learned a lot today. One of the things I will not forget is that apparently it is the second mouse that gets the cheese. So I think that is something that is important to keep in mind, to bear in mind also in all the work we continue to do. So thanks to everyone to participate in this final online conference. We had actually quite an important participation. We had at some point almost 90 people who joined in. We had a very active participation in the chat. It shows the commitment of all of you. And this is important because we are going through challenging times. We have mentioned digitalization, the greening of the economy, and all of this in a context of COVID-19, which will also have a huge economic impact, which we cannot even predict how it will also go and develop in the coming months and years. But automation and robotization in production of furniture will challenge the industry and also the job profiles we had. And that was also the project. And the project was about defining future profiles of the joiner, cabinet maker, and upholsterer, and how they should look like. What kind of skills and competences will be required to perform these tasks in the future and make our industry a strong industry, a competitive industry, as has been said, and adapted to the future-proof, as we like to say. And this is not only important for businesses, for companies, but of course also for workers and for employees in our industries. We have at several times underlined the importance of vocational training, the education systems, of course, but also apprenticeships. And I think it's important that we take this also continuously and take this up in our discussions and in our dialogues we have. All of this, again, to have a good future for our industry and for our industry also to have decent jobs, sustainable jobs. We have learned about the concept of mutually recognized European core professional profiles and how they can be established. Without, and that was also part of the discussion, the need to come up with a standardized system, but actually taken into account the differences and the different cultures and the different educational cultures that also exist. At European level, we will all together continue to foster this concept in our social dialogue. In our social dialogue with the furniture industry and also the woodworking industries, they were already mentioned. And I think it's very important, and also to link back to what another speaker from the European Commission has told us, that apparently the discussions are ongoing or underway between member states and the European Commission on the need for vocational training and education to become more important and more coordination on European level. And it was said the ground becomes more fertile. Well, I would like to offer again and extend, and I think on behalf of all the partners, the willingness of the social partners of social dialogue to participate in that dialogue. And I think this is also a hand, and I hope and I know the Commission will accept our extended hand, because they know that if social partners come together and make joint proposals, as we do in our Memorandum of Understanding, it also contributes to good policy on the European level. So we are there, we are ready to discuss with you, and we are ready to participate in those talks. Maybe one last thing, again, to thank everybody, to thank the technical staff, to thank the moderator who did a great job. And maybe also to thank, and I think I can do that, also thank in person Magdalena, who has not been visible in this preparation here, or let's say in the conference, but who in the background did a huge load of work together with all of us, together with all the speakers, together with all the social partners involved in this project, all the project partners, together with Woodwise, with Jeroen as the expert. So thanks to all of us. And this is not the end. It was also mentioned we should avoid that it's not just another paper that ends up in the drawer, but the work does not end here, but continues. Thank you.